we got to get into what happened at the Xbox town hall meeting. Asha was there. And of course, who came to the party? Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. And what's interesting about this is, and I will read some things from the article and from what Jez had to put on X. He normally does not attend these things, right? When he does show up in the office or something for Xbox, he shows up in a suit. This has been confirmed. But what did he show up in? He showed up in an Xbox hoodie. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, first of all, the only reason why we know this is because one singular picture was taken by Aaron Greenberg. Now, Aaron Greenberg is the VP of marketing. So some people have already accused him as well. He specifically reached out to Satya, told him to wear an Xbox hoodie so people can feel safe and take a picture and put it on the socials. Again, I read that, folks, and as ridiculous as that sounds to you, that's how it sounds to me. With all of that said, though, it is the community, so take it with a grain of salt. Well, there was an original report from Ecstasies, who we all know that I'm a fan of his work. Had him on the show a couple of times. I want to work with him in the future. He had posted something that was not only bombastic in its wording, too good to be true, and it turns out that did not happen. And what I'm referring to is the quote where he said that he was told the words that a blank check to get Xbox back on track was used. Well, that Mike Straw, who of course works for Xbox, reached out on social media and said that was not said. Also, Destin Legary, who put out an excellent video, which I'll add to the show notes so you can give Destin some love, said that, he specifically asked Mike Straw about it, and Mike was like, no, that wasn't said. Well, we know exactly what was said because we have an exclusive here, an exclusive, mind you, from Windows Central. So before I pull up the story, let me read Jez Corden's tweet verbatim, and then we'll pull up that article. I've already added the article to the show notes if you want to give it a click and give it a read. It's a really good read, folks. It's a lot of information there. So Jez says this on his Twitter account, exclusive. Here's our full quotes for Satya Nadella to Xbox at an internal town hall Q&A. And this is what it says, quote, "We're long on gaming. We'll continue to invest and will always do so." That is coming directly from Satya Nadella. And Nadella, according to Jez, had some great comments and here they are, folks. Quote, "Talked about fighting back against doom scrolling with active engagement hobbies like gaming. Repeatedly talked up console hardware. Acknowledged fan feedback and passion for Xbox. And according to Jez, teams at Xbox seem very, quote, re-energized after the moves with new management." So let me pull up the article in front of me right here. And of course, it was written by who? Jez Corden of Windows Central. And it's titled Xbox CEO Asha Sharma hosted Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella in an internal Q&A, amplifying that Microsoft, quote, will always invest in gaming and that we're, quote, we're long on gaming, we'll continue to invest, we will always do so. Again, this is a really big deal. I would not, I just looking at the playing field, it's a daunting task to think of how Asha and the team that she's forming, to take over or to make changes to the way things were done after, Phil, retired, Sarah Bond stepped down, there's Matt Booty there. So of course there's somebody familiar with the studios. It is a daunting thought and a task ahead of them on how they turn this whole thing around because, depending on who you ask, I'm an Xbox through and through. It's my favorite brand. I like it for a legitimate bunch of really, really good reasons for me personally. First and foremost, I like the fact that Xbox Game Pass is a thing. And as a retired guy, I've said this 100 times, it does work for my budget. I get a lot of games for a very low price, allowing me to buy a bunch of other games, which I consistently do. But this is an important conversation to have because what it ultimately does, whether someone is going to frame this as, an advert for Microsoft and Xbox working together, or all they want to do is calm people's minds. Listen, when Asha came out last week and announced Crispy Bomb Project Helix, and that she went out and confirmed that it is a console first. And what does Helix ultimately mean? It means a merging of DNA, meaning exactly what we all thought this box was going to be. It was going to be a merging of console, a merging of PC to make a hybrid device, the first of its kind, the first that's ever been done for Xbox. And it's been a many, many years since the idea of a potential of OEM devices, but we're not talking about those. We're talking about the actual Microsoft designed AMD teamed up with Xbox that's coming out next year. GDC, at least the part where Xbox is hosting, is going to be on Wednesday. And there is a long list of Xbox and what they're going to be doing in the future. And Jason Ronald is going to be leading the charge. I don't know, Crispy, if we're going to actually see the device or we're going to get like the skinny of exactly when it could potentially be coming out and exactly what it's going to be doing. But needless to say, I don't think any of this is coincidental. Everything that they've done up until now, including this town hall Q&A with staffers, this was supposed to be a private event and it got out, right? Was it on accident? Was that by accident? Was it on purpose? I don't know. But we have the information in front of us. I want to get your thoughts on this because according to Jez Corden's article, Crispy, he goes on to say at the big internal Q&A session, Xbox CEO Asha Sharma hosted Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella discussing the, quote, long vision for Xbox's future. Jez says this, the past month, longtime Microsoft veteran and Xbox lead Phil Spencer retired, giving the floor to incoming CEO Asha Sharma. Xbox stands at a bit of a crossroads. The Xbox brand has been under strain for quite some time and to a degree owing to the decision to divest Xbox of its exclusive content to PlayStation, chiefly icons like Halo, Gears of War, Forza, and soon Fable. The decision has left people wondering if Microsoft is actually truly interested in maintaining Xbox as a brand long term, myself included, since without exclusives content, it doesn't seem that Xbox has a unique selling point required for its long term future. Again, this is the uphill battle that they have. The one thing I do know for a fact is that Satya Nadella has he didn't say there's a blank check to fix what's wrong with Xbox. That would have been pretty dope if he did, but he didn't say that, and that's fine. The fact that he came out publicly to say that Xbox is important to Microsoft, we know why he's doing that. He's doing that for his investors. Microsoft makes a lot of money, but guess what? Xbox makes a real lot of money for Microsoft and their investors. So of course they're going to keep it going. It's what they do in the interim to kind of get things back on track that's going to be very interesting. But I want to get your thoughts on what Satya Nadella had to say at this town hall, Crispy.
Well, it's a corporation. We've highlighted multiple times over the past a few quarters, I would say that, the Xbox ecosystem, regardless of what you think about it, is making Microsoft money. And this is where I go and say, and you know what? I'm going down the rabbit hole, Boom. I've been holding this one back for a while.
Go crazy.
ABK, from everybody's words, changed everything. Why did it change everything? Who was the one that was testifying against Microsoft in that? It was PlayStation. It was Sony saying, no, you can't have Call of Duty, and that's just one game, as an exclusive. Okay? So you go down to that rabbit hole and you say, all right, well, they highlighted that Starfield's exclusive and they highlighted Bethesda's exclusivity and all these other things, right? So then you highlight all that. You have this massive battle. What was it? A year and a half, 2 years, a massive battle with regulators, with Sony themselves, all these things. At that point, aren't you tired? Okay. Because now you've obtained a ABK. You have went through that entire battle and you've said, okay, we had Phil testify, Sarah, you had the email come out from Matt Booty in that, all these things, right? You say, you know what? We got to relax. All right. Let's just start releasing games on PlayStation, make them happy, have them, just be, null and void. Like, hey, like, this is great. We get these new games, all these things, IPs that we've never played before. If you've been only on PlayStation the entire time, these are all things that could have transpired within the boardroom or anything else. Now you come in and you say, okay, Phil retired, which I believe he really wanted to retire a while ago. I do believe that. He looks like he's just done. Like he's ready to be with his family. The Sarah thing, I mean, I already expressed my opinion on that. The fact is you have new leadership, okay? And you're right. Satya is usually, like very prim and proper. Like, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to be the CEO. I'm going to have at least a shirt and a overcoat or something like that. And all of a sudden, he comes in with an Xbox sweatshirt and he says, you know what? We're not done. And then they announce Helix and all these other things. And you say, oh, well, it's not a console. I mean, they've already announced the Magnus chip. The Magnus chip is the whole purpose of this actually being a console. It is going to play your Xbox games natively. You've heard Colt Eastwood say it. You've heard multiple people. Do you have those out there, which I will keep nameless, that keep saying emulation and all these other things? The emulations with the 360, okay? This is going to play your one games and series games natively on that console. Okay. That's all the research I've done. All the tech heads that have talked to me have said, this is what's happening. So then you could take that chipset and you could place it in a possible third party like Asus and all these other things if needed, if you want to hit a lower price point, because honestly, they want this Xbox, in my opinion, and I think Sarah was onto it, a premium high-end product that's possibly going to have every game running at 120 FPS, but maybe if we're really lucky, a 60 FPS locked at 4K. That would be awesome. And that's not even including all the PC stuff. So they're giving you a reason just in those small things, not including Game Pass, not including quick resume, not including smart delivery, not including, Xbox Play Anywhere and all these other things, a reason to say, hey, this product might be for me. But they're looking at the PC gamer and they're saying, you know what? Like, some of these people, like you've highlighted 100 million times, hey, there's this certain small percentage that have these high-end PCs. Other than that, this might hit some of these PC gamers that may have been looking to upgrade. May not be possible now. It is all coming to fruition. If they execute it correctly, we're talking about something that could absolutely make PlayStation, with the rumored, because it's still not confirmed by them, say, I'm done with PC. So what does that do as an ecosystem for Xbox? Hey, PC gamers, you're cool over here. We're going to release our games over here. If they went full-on exclusive only to PC and Xbox, you Sony fans would be whining till no end. You would say, oh, they can't do this. They're too big, blah, 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 blah. And then, they're releasing games, the Steam machine's coming out. They're releasing games still on Steam and everything. You can buy it if you want, but you're not going to get all the perks that we have over here at Xbox. They have an opportunity to do some amazing things and also bring back Xbox without having to alienate us. All you have to do is keep these features, improve on them, make the PC a part of it. So if, I see a stupid gnome Steam game, then I'm watching somebody play and say, that's hilarious. I would love to play that with my stepson. You know what I mean? These are little things that, hey, I'm able to do that now that I have the Helix. Like this is a possibility. So these are things for me as a primarily, if not always, console gamer. When I was young, yes, I had a PC and I tried it out and I didn't like it. And that's the reason why I'm a console gamer. Okay. So I have been through all that. I want them to have a clear, objective. I want them to say, hey, we got to hit IP. Like, I really don't think Forza Horizon 6, after you already released Forza Horizon 5 on PlayStation, I don't think it should be there. Now, they want money. They're a corporation. They're going to do what they want. But if you held that back, some of those PlayStation gamers that love Forza Horizon 5 might say, I don't know. I kind of want to go and do this in Japan and have these extra perks. And, I'm getting onto our other subject. But in all seriousness, I look at this and I say, am I mad that Halo Campaign Evolved is going to PlayStation? No. You have these IPs, and if you treat them correctly, like an Oblivion, for example, and you go and release it, remastered and everything, you are going to make money. You can't do Gears of War Reloaded and just throw, what I call, ridiculous like money grab stuff at them. You got to actually put the work in. So instead of giving them Gears of War E-Day, you say, hey, but also we have remastered in UE5 or remade in UE5, Gears of War 2 and 3. Here's that for you, but E-Day, we don't know when that's coming. So if you really want to play E-Day, guess what? You got to come to Xbox or PC, because guess what? You've already established, PlayStation, that PC is multiplat, even though Stan said it wasn't. And guess what? Now you've established that. Y'all are, running around, clicking your hooves, loving everything. And guess what? That's what happened right in front of your face. They said, PC players, we don't like you. That's what PlayStation said. And you have 900 million at minimum of PC players. Who's the bigger audience to try to grab? Xbox is doing the right things. I just want them to be like, hey, PC, you're included. Like, hey, you only get Gears of War E-Day on PC. Hey, you guys can come sit with us. And Xbox. That's not that hard. It's mind-blowing how they just dance around and move those goalposts. And I just sit there and I'd be like, dude, I got screenshots of you. Like, you need to chill out. Like, you said this one day, it's PC's not a big deal, this and that. And now you're dancing around loving that they're pulling back from PC. I don't want Xbox to pull back from PC. I want them to question what they release on PlayStation. That's my thought process.
Fuzzy. I want to bring you in, but I want to read a couple more excerpts from the article from Jez Corden. And this is a quote directly from Satya Nadella when he was introduced by Asha. And Satya goes on to say, there are core identities to this company. I don't think Microsoft will exist without these identities continuing to thrive. We're a platform company, a developer company, being a knowledgeable worker company, and gaming. These are the main identities of what Microsoft has always meant and will always mean. Therefore, we need to take that. We don't need to take it for granted. We need to renew it. I'm really thankful to Matt Booty and Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond and all of you who have built this franchise into its 25th year. And then, of course, Asha thanked Satya for the opportunity and noted Xbox's uniqueness. She hailed the Xbox team, calling them incredible, noting that over 10% of the Xbox team had been there for over 20 years. She said it emphasizes Microsoft's long-term mindset, reiterating Satya Nadella's comments on being long on gaming and asked him to elaborate on that point. Well, he did. And this is what he had to say. Frankly, this applies to anything that we do. We should be in the core of what we do here for gaming's sake. It's not about anything other than being just an excellent company and an excellent steward for what it means to produce great games and produce great systems and hardware. I mean, look, I can keep going. This is a long article. We only have so much time, but Fuzzy, I'm going to get your thoughts on what Satya had to say. And in this town hall, hearing that what we got from Jez Corden and what was put out there, I think it's safe to say that Xbox isn't going anywhere. Hardware is around the corner. We're going to get a chance to know more about that hardware this week, specifically at GDC. And to be quite fair, I don't see anything that's Xbox is dead. As a matter of fact, I think that they understand. And when I say they, I actually think that, and this is just me speculating, folks. This is not this. I didn't get this on an inside tip or anything. I'm just reading the room. I think Satya understands that there were mistakes made. The multi-plat thing, yes, it made some money for them. And some games it did better than others, right? But ultimately it damaged the brand. And there are rumors that Matt Booty was the one that did not want this to happen. Maybe that's why he's still around. I have no idea. It's just speculation. But there are rumors that he really pushed the envelope to keep the exclusivity of Xbox, and he believed it was the actual identity of the brand. Well, that identity has been damaged. Now we have new leadership. They have an uphill battle. I'm going to get your thoughts on if what Satya had to say, gives you faith that Xbox is in it for the long haul.
I think more so than anything, with him making that appearance and being in more casual wear as opposed to business attire, should give the Xbox team a lot more comfort. I know that there's probably shortly after the regime change, let's just say, there were probably some people a little concerned as far as what that meant, long term, or the outlook for XYZ studio and so forth. So him making that announcement at like the town hall, I think should regain some of the confidence of their team as well as the consumer as well, because it's not a usual type of appearance. I mean, sure, a lot of this could be, dog and pony show kind of stuff as far as for us, the consumers, or even the gaming media for that concern. But I do think there is a re-energized commitment from the higher ups as far as being more open to maybe a different direction, or just looking at what may have been done before and seeing if that was worthwhile in the end. Now, I'm not going to speak on the exclusivity aspect of things. I think that's kind of like the genie out of the bottle kind of deal. Although I would like to see, if PlayStation is supposedly pulling back their single players, maybe, Xbox should do something similar, but it is what it is at this point. I think the bigger thing is the timing of all this, the announcement of the console. And I know some people are like, well, maybe that was a coincidence to kind of take away from Marathon. I think a little bit differently, although I know there's a lot of great opinions saying otherwise. But my thought was a lot of this is to counter the constant Xbox is dead. They're getting out of the hardware space. Like with Samus Blackley, he made a couple of posts talking about this seems like it's going to be like a swan song with the new leadership kind of deal. Impactor, although he seems to quote things exactly the opposite of how they wind up, but he's also talking about the end of hardware for Xbox. So I think a lot of this is to counter that narrative, which they've gotten much better, even during like the last few, I guess you could say, years of Phil's leadership. They've gotten much better as far as countering narratives. I like that they're, a lot more, better timed or better placed. And if they are doing these announcements or bringing more attention to the brand while also taking some of the spotlight off of their competition, that would be a little bit more of an encouragement that they are serious about this. So whatever energy is pumped back into their veins, it seems like it's working. And having Satya at that town hall, I think, is evidence of it. As far as when it comes to the Helix and all the debates online, I think one thing needs to be clear. If the CEO is saying it's XYZ, I mean, it's a console in her posts, then we should just take it as that until we actually have it in front of us. And then if we see it's differently, then we can, see about refunds or pitchforks or whatever. But I think at this point, some of the other noise that constantly pops up, which Boom, I sent you like a tagline for what I think would be a good marketing kind of thing with the whole Helix naming, although it's just a project name, it's not an actual console name. But I think they really need to drive the message home that this is a console that is special in a way that no other console has, the ability to play PC games at the same time. And for those that are like, well, it's emulation this and emulation that, okay. Here's the big thing. Can you explain to me how different a console is from a PC? In most cases, the chipset, the hardware, the board, a lot of that stuff is pretty much like pre-built lower end PC stuff in a lot of cases, especially since they've been going with AMD. But you can look back in the past with Intel chips and PowerPC chips for the PS3 and stuff. They've followed the PC spectrum for a long time. In fact, if you overwrite your OS on your PS5, you can have a Linux box basically being as close as you can get to a Steam machine at this point in time. So these consoles are PCs with a walled in, setting or access. You don't get all of the root functions you would with a PC. It just has that layer that blocks you from, side loading stuff, unless you overwrite that OS, which some people have done with their series consoles and have turned those into emulation boxes. But in the grand scheme of things, this new console that they're moving forward, this new leadership that's moving forward, with what we'll see hopefully this week at GDC and maybe, get a true unveiling at the June showcase, fingers crossed, I think is the direction that we need to pay attention to. And for the love of God, gaming media, stop bringing up 2013 and TV or console sales, unless you're going to look at the Wii U. Like if you're going to bring that stuff up, bring up the Wii U. If you're going to bring that stuff up, bring up the tone deafness of PlayStation with the PS3 with Get a Second Job. Like I'm tired of constantly bringing up the bad for Xbox and not the bad for the others as if it's relevant to this new move. Wait until, let's say 5 or 10 years down the road and this all goes kaput, or maybe it goes extremely well. Whatever the case, use it as a backdrop when comparing it further down the road. It's the first few weeks. And I would say for the first few weeks of this new leadership, they've been doing a pretty good job as far as staying on message and getting people talking about the brand, which in essence is probably the most important thing, bringing back, the focus to Xbox in general. But it's great to see Satya backing this. We'll see if he does any funny business behind the scenes later. But I think right now we should just take it at his word as far as being behind the brand and the focus being on the console and see where they go from there.